Thanks so much for tuning in and joining me for this week's Oracle Outlook video reading. If this is your first time here, I'd like to say welcome. And if you're a returning viewer and visitor, I'd like to say welcome back. If you're new here, my name is James. I am an Oracle card deck creator and reader, and I have been reading cards since 1999, which is about 25 years at this point. I've only started making card decks since 2020. At that point in time, we were all experiencing the pandemic and lockdown, and I had divine inspiration after somebody asked me for maybe like the 100th time when I was going to make my own deck. And so that was the situation that kind of gave me the motivation to do it. I now talk about it in hindsight as a divine coping mechanism. But I started one deck, I would complete it, and then just go on to the next deck, and I've been doing that for like the last 4 years now. So that is a nice way to introduce this week's deck that I'm going to be using for this week's reading, because at this point in my journey, I'm really wanting to feature and focus on my own deck creations. So I worked with this one in the past, and so we are working once again with the Mitchell Tarot playing cards. So that is the deck, and it is a deck that kind of mashes up two different systems. The playing cards, which is how I actually got started into card reading. I started with playing cards, and then I incorporated the major arcana from tarot, the tarot system, into this deck. So what I love about the deck is that the deck is playing card size, because I wanted to stick with that. It's on linen cardstock. And I always like to show you the card backs. And just like last week, a card fell out, so that's going to be part of the reading. Okay, so here's the card backs. I went with this because I made a few decks. So one I made with red backs and one with blue, because most standard playing card decks come in either red backs or blue backs. Okay, so I'm going to graciously bend down and pick up the card that fell to the floor. And it's face down, so I don't know what it is. But just like last week, that's going to be what we call the jumper card, and I'm going to start with that. So I always like to shuffle the cards on camera so you all can see that I'm shuffling. And when I shuffle, I focus on the intention of asking for whatever insight, guidance, and information is going to be most helpful as we move through the upcoming week. And I should say, since I hadn't said it at this point, this video reading is going to be for the week starting November the 18th, 2024. So now I'm shuffling the cards on the table that is next to me. And I usually like to shuffle 5 times, because in my spiritual practice I work with the elements. So each shuffle corresponds with one of the 5 elements. And I have one more. Alright, so now I'm going to go ahead and cut the deck. Fan the cards out. And now I'm just looking at the fan, and I'm going to pull 5 cards from the fan that are getting my attention. Alright, so I have the 5 cards selected. I have them face down, and I won't get to see them until I turn them over so we all get to see them at the same time. So I'm lining them up. Okay. So now I'm going to start with the jumper card. This was the card that fell out while I was shuffling and fell to the floor. So the card is, okay, so here we have the 2 of clubs. And so what I want to say about this deck, if you're seeing it for the first time, is that I created this deck in response to people who asked me about the playing cards in terms of memorization, right? So I had the idea, and I know this is not a new idea, but at the time I had the idea, it was new to me, that I would create a deck of playing cards that had scenes or illustrations on the cards. And let me say this, so the illustration that is on the card is only one possibility of several in most cases with the cards, right? So here we have the 2 of clubs, and as you can see in the image, a gift is being exchanged, right? So it could be that the deck is suggesting that this is my gift to you as a reader, meaning this video is my gift to you, because one of the meanings of the Two of Clubs is about offering something to the public, because the suit of clubs represents either something of a social nature or something that's public related, right? So this is something for the public. I'm sharing something with the public, right? In this context, right? So there is that. It can also be about, for some people, in terms of service, because one of the meanings of this card is about service, like, and the two is about an exchange, right? So this talks about something being exchanged that's going to be mutually beneficial for both parties involved, right? So that could be a service. One person is a service provider and the other person is on the receiving end of that service, right? It could also be the literal exchange of a good, right? That would still be something that would be in service to other people, not just a service-related business or a service offering, but the product itself could be of service to other people. So there's that as well, right? And that kind of puts in like a business slant to the card, because the card also, suit of clubs, can be about work or business or something that we are working towards or working with, right? Like business at hand kind of thing. So there's that. The other thing that I would say is that maybe for some people, this is an opportunity to focus on what gifts, talents, or abilities that you have that other people could benefit from, right? So there's that. And it could literally be, like, for some people, this is a time of gift giving or receiving a gift, right? So this would be on being on either side of that equation, either giving a gift or receiving a gift, right? So those are some of the things that I want to say. I'm asking because I felt like I was done and I'm not done. Another aspect of this card could be a focus on friendships, because this could be either like working relationships, so relationship with coworkers, but also too with friends and friendships, with the idea that each party is bringing something to the relationship that's going to be beneficial for everyone involved, right? So it could just be a matter of, there may be something where somebody is asking for help or assistance within the confines of a friendship, or there may be something in terms of help or assistance in a job or working sense, right? But it's about something being exchanged that is of mutual benefit, right? So it could be like, if you're focusing on your friends and friendships, like making sure that there's equal giving and receiving in that relationship. Now I'm feeling complete. Okay, so now let's move on to the first card of the 5 cards. Opening the lineup for the week, we have the King of Diamonds. So now court cards can represent either people, like for me, like if I was doing a reading, this could be me, or it could be somebody in my world or sphere. So I'm just going to go more with the idea that if we're talking about another person, the King of Diamonds is a card that would suggest, first off, a male figure, or somebody who presents themselves as male, because I read kings as male energy and queens as female energy. So it'll be interesting to see if a queen shows up, since I just mentioned that. But this would be somebody who is presenting as male. Kings are also about authority. So this could be somebody who's in a position of authority, somebody who has some type of power or control or mastery over something. In this particular case, the suit of diamonds would be this particular king's domain. So it would be something that is of a material nature, the physical material world, something tangible. So this could be things like finances. It could be real estate or property. Anything having to do with the physical material world. Those are just some examples that I just gave. Right, but this could also be somebody who is wealthy. So this is known as the entrepreneur. It could be known as the wealthy man. So it could just somebody who has a lot to give. What's coming to me is that this may be a person, since we're talking about the 2 of clubs, right, being about something being exchanged, this could be somebody who has a lot to give, meaning something of value, and a lot of it to give to other people, right? So that could be something of that nature. I'm inclined to say, too, that this may be a person who values values relationships in which they are transactional, right? That would be the Two of Clubs, right? The Two of Clubs could be seen as a transaction with one hand or one pair of hands giving the gift and the other hands receiving the gift, right? So it could just be a matter of there may be something about a particular figure who values transactional relationships, right? Meaning like thinking about like, what are you going to give me? If you want something from me, you have to be willing to give me something, right? That we all have probably come in contact with those kinds of people, right? They don't just maybe give out of the goodness of their heart. It's like they're looking for something in return, right? So there's that. I'm asking what else do I need to say about this card? That's what I'm feeling inclined to say in the moment. So again, this could be a person who has some sort of power, control, authority, mastery over the physical world, either in terms of finances, real estate, property, things of that nature. Also a person who could be an entrepreneur. Other thing that's coming to me, because I mentioned the one approach but not the other, right? So if we make this about ourselves, then the king is asking us, what do we need to either know or do to claim more authority, more mastery, more control over our material circumstances, yeah? It might be your money, it might be your property, you know, your home, that kind of thing, but what are you willing to do to come into a greater sense of power, control, authority, or mastery over your own physical domain? Now, the other thing that could be your physical domain could be your physical body, your physical well-being, right? So it could just be a matter of what are you willing to do? What kind of gift could you give to yourself in terms of maybe better physical self-care, right? So those are some other thoughts. Again, thinking I was done, but that's the King of Diamonds. All right, looking at the next card. Okay, here we have the Knight of Clubs. So now remember, this is a mashup of playing card deck and a tarot card deck. Since for me, the playing cards only have kings, queens, and jacks, I decided to create knights to make it a full tarot deck. So here we have the Knight of Clubs. For me, when the knights show up, they highlight things like being focused, action-oriented, making some kind of progress. They're very service-oriented. And here we have that word service again, right? Remember, Two of Clubs is also a service-oriented card. So here we have a knight, and from the same suit, right? The Knight of Clubs. So we have the same suit repeating. So there's something about work with the three cards now. The ruling majority with clubs is either something about work or business, something that we are working on or working towards, or business at hand, right? Or maybe something having to do with the social aspect of our lives or the public at large, right? But this would be a person who's in service in that regard, right? So since it's a knight, it could be maybe somebody who's in law enforcement or some kind of position where they are moving into action to provide maybe protection, right? And I'm looking here because he's got a shield in the image, you know, looking to protect the public at large. So any kind of position that would afford a person to be able to fulfill that obligation or that role, right? The other thing about this, so it could just be a matter of if you go with the first card and maybe with the second possibility where we are the King of Diamonds and we are asking ourselves, what do we need to do or know that's going to allow us to create a greater sense of mastery, power, empowerment, control over our physical well-being? Then this card is about what action step are you willing to take within that plan, right? It's not just enough to have the idea, right? What work are you willing to do? What legs are you willing to give to that plan, right? To move it forward. So this card could just be like a follow-up, like what would be the natural first step that you'd be willing to take in your plan to achieve greater sense of control over your own physical domain, right? That's what I want to say about the Knight of Clubs in the moment. I may come back to that. Next card. Here we have, oh, this is one of my favorite cards. Okay, this image might be a little hard to read, but it is the Six of Diamonds. I'm hoping you can see that clearly because when I printed the card, it came out a little darker than I anticipated, but I love the card so much. So here we have the 6 diamonds. Do you notice a pattern? We got a club, diamond, diamond, right? So this could be as a theme. It's about the work that we are putting into something, right? Working towards something. And the diamonds are about the rewards or the payoff, right? If you do the work, you will see some reward or payoff. But it has to be in alignment with what you value, right? So before you kind of try and overhaul your life, right? Going with the guidance that I'm offering through the cards this week, it could just be a matter of like, we maybe need to take a look at what do we value? What do we value in our lives at this point or at this stage, right? And then your plan and the actions that result from the plan need to be in alignment with the values, yeah? Okay. So now the 6 of diamonds is a card that talks about, of course, money and finance, right? But it's also about responsibility. The 6 for me in playing cartomancy is a number that talks about 2 things. Either responsibility or communication. So it could just be a matter of, and this being the middle of the 5 cards, this would be like the focus card, like the central issue. So it could just be a matter of people taking responsibility for their physical well-being and not leaving it in the hands of others, right? Let's just go with the idea that the king is somebody who's in a position of power, control, authority, and this may be an opportunity to take a look at ourselves and saying, I'm not going to allow another person to be responsible for my physical well-being. And that could be a way of taking your personal power back, right? Not believing that, you know, another person can take your power away, right? So it could just be a matter of what would you be willing to do? And when I say you, I'm talking about the collective you, meaning we. I'm included in that, right? When I'm doing these readings, I don't feel like I'm being separated from you all just because I'm the one holding the cards and the words are coming out of my mouth. What I'm saying is just as applicable to me and just as much for me as it is for each and every person who lands on this video. So that could just be a matter of, okay, what kind of responsibility are we willing to take to enrich our own lives, right? So there's that. The other thing about this card going with the communication, there may be some opportunities, and we have the King of Diamonds here, right, to have a conversation with another person that has to do with either money, financial well-being, something of a material matter or nature, right? Or something that's of value to us, meaning it's important to us, right? So there's that. The other thing I will say, and this is a more metaphysical application or aspect of this card for me, so this would be an opportunity for those of you who may be more metaphysically minded to maybe take a look at either your astrological charts or your numerology charts, because I call this card the personal science card. So the personal science has to do with, you know, astrology, numerology, any of the metaphysical or occult sciences, and learning more about yourself through those sciences. So the way it could be is that you could be either exploring those on your own. You could be a budding practitioner of either astrology, numerology, both astronumerology, right? It could be any of those kinds of things, or that this card is encouraging you to seek the services of another person, and that would bring back to the clubs aspect of the 2 of clubs, and then the King of Diamonds. I talked about being an entrepreneur, right? So it could just be a matter of somebody's actually considering seeing an astrologer, right, and taking a look at your astrological chart and having a professional analyze it and translate it for you. Could be a matter of, you know, maybe seeing a professional numerology or a numerologer. I think that's the right term, or numerologist. That's the right term, right? And having them look at your charts. But again, if you are into the occult sciences or you are a magical practitioner, this could be an opportunity for you to either look at your chart, your numerology chart, or maybe doing some divination work before you do a ritual or a ceremony or some kind of other practice, yeah? But that is what I want to say about the 6 of Diamonds, one of my favorite cards in the deck. Oh, I'm going to come back. Let me come back. For those people who felt like maybe that last little bit of information was too woo-woo, here's a little something that's more practical. The 6 of Diamonds can also be about computers and technology, yeah? So it could just be a matter of paying attention to maybe conversations, the 6 being about communication, that take place online. Here's what I'm going to say about that. The other aspect of the 6 is that if you choose to engage in communication or conversation online, you need to be willing to accept responsibility for your part in those conversations. Meaning, own your posts, right? If you post it, take responsibility for what you say and knowing that consequences come with what you say, right? So, you know, especially if you're finding yourself getting some pushback, blowback, some resistance around what it is that you are saying or posting, right? It's not that you can't say it. You have every right to say it, but just know that whatever you say, take responsibility for it and assume assume responsibility for what you say. I'm saying that again, but also to the consequences that come with that, right? Okay. That was a little bit me on my soapbox, so I'm going to get off my soapbox, okay? Next card. Here we have, this is like the week of a pattern, right? So now we had nothing but diamonds and clubs. So now we have another king, and this is the king of clubs, right? So this is very interesting. So we have the entrepreneur, king of diamonds, right? This is the person who works in the financial sector or something of a material nature like real estate property, yeah. And then we have this person who's like the business authority, right? So he can be a business authority, like an authority in business. He could also be a leader in business, meaning like a boss, supervisor, or something of that nature. If it's not that, because remember now clubs is also about the public and something of a social nature, he could be somebody who's very, very helpful, right? So there's that. So it could be a matter of somebody coming in this week who wants to offer their help. And now remember, that was kind of touched on with the 2 of clubs, right? This idea about giving and receiving, somebody who's wanting to offer help or assistance, that's the number 2, about somebody who's offering help or support, right? So this could be the figure who comes in through that way, right? So there's that. Another aspect is now, if this is you, so this could be a person who is planning on, remember I talked about an action plan and moving something forward, maybe somebody who's thinking about moving up the ladder, right? And taking the steps to advance his position, right? The other thing I will say, again, because this is a male, so if you are a male and watching this, or a male presenting and watching this, then sometimes for me the suit of clubs can be about our own sense of self, right? So with the diamonds, it could be about, you know, our values and our value system. Then this card would be about our image, our sense of self, and our identity. So somebody may be taking a look at who they are. And it's very interesting that we came on the heels of what I talked about with like looking at your astrology chart or your numerology chart, that kind of thing, because these are systems that are designed to help us become more aware of who we are, right? So I find it very interesting. So it could just be somebody's taking steps to become more aware of who they are. But there's also that theme about power, control, mastery. So it could just be a matter of like we are being encouraged to become our own authority, our best authority on what's best for our lives, right, going forward. So that's what I would say about those 2 kings. Oh, and I'm looking at the image. It's funny, every time I think I'm done, I'm not. So I'm looking at the image, and if you notice, he's sitting on the steps, but he also has a pad and a pencil in his hand, right? And what I talked about, a plan, right? So this could be literal advice or guides to actually write a plan out or write a plan down, right? Putting it in black and white so you can see it, right? And that would help you better maybe stay on track, keep yourself inspired and motivated, you know, knowing what action steps you need to take when you need to take them, right? The steps, right? That kind of thing. So now I'm feeling like I'm done. So now let's round this up and close out with this card. This is one of my favorite cards in a tarot deck, and this is the High Priestess. It is very funny. Not funny, haha, but funny like, ooh, coinkydink funny, right? Meaning like a divine coincidence, right? Synchronicity. Because I talked about becoming more powerful in our own lives, yes? It's assuming some kind of mastery and control and power over our own lives. One of the meanings that I have for the High Priestess card when it shows up is independence. Yeah, learning the lesson of becoming independent. And what else did I notice? I'm getting excited. That I noticed is that the Jumper card was a 2 card. And we're ending the reading on a 2 card. The High Priestess is the second major arcana. So there's that number 2. So I love how this reading is just flowing with patterns, yeah? We had the clubs and the diamonds alternating, right? So they are considered ruling majority in the reading. And then we have the number 2 showing up again, right? So there's this interesting thing about sharing. It's about connection. It's about bonding with other people. And it could also be, you know, you becoming more connected to yourself, right? Right? It could be about the relationships that we're having out in the world with other people, but it could also be about the relationship that we're having with ourselves, which is like the primary relationship if you stop and think about it, right? Okay, so there's that. So what I also love about the High Priestess showing up is that she, because typically the High Priestess is pictured as a woman, I went with the image of a library, right? So 2 things come to mind. So first off is that what I said for those of us who are more woo-woo, right? I said about the astrology and the numerology. The High Priestess is all about the intuitive arts. That is numerology, astrology, tarot. She's all about delving more into the metaphysical aspects of life, yeah? So there is that. So that message is getting repeated. Now, the fact that the image here is in a library, it's a pun for being a reader, yeah? So it could be a reader in the literal sense, meaning like there may be something that you need some information on and you're being asked with this card to read up more on it, right? To become more informed. That would help you make a decision. That's one of my meanings for the card. This card could usually be about decision you need to be made, needing to wait for further information, and part of that process may be going with the image that you kind of equip yourself or educate yourself reading up on something to gain the information that would best help you make the right and perfect decision. So there's that. That's a literal. The more metaphysical, it would be a pun for being a reader, like yours truly right now in this moment in time, right? With me reading the cards. It could be a matter of you are being encouraged, if that fits for you, to delve more deeply into your study of the intuitive arts, whatever it is for you. So there is that. But again, my first impulse is to say that she is showing up to remind us about the lesson of independence. And on that note, I'm going to wrap up this week's Oracle Outlook reading. If you hung out with me this long and you made it to this point in the video, I thank you so much for giving me the gift of your time. I know these days that with the value of time being what it is, that you could have chosen to be anywhere else and doing whatever else you could have been doing with your time, but you chose to spend it with me, and I don't take that lightly. So my name is James Himm Mitchell. As I wrap up, I hope this reading resonated with you. And if it did, let me know how in the comments below. I would love to hear from you. Until next week, I'm holding space for all of us. I'm hoping that you are going to have the most fabulous week possible. And I look forward to seeing you. Oh, I just remembered, we are moving, I think we're moving closer to Thanksgiving. I'm spacing out in the moment, so I'm not sure if it's this week or next week. But anyway, I'm thankful for you all right now. So I'm just going to talk about what I'm thankful for right now. I'm thankful for you all right now. Again, James Himm Mitchell signing off, and I will see you in our next video together. So until then, be well and take care.